Being an imperfect human is not all that easy, is it? Every morning I wake up with a clean slate, a fresh start. And by the end of the day, sometimes by the end of the morning, I've thought or said or done the wrong thing more than once. I've been prideful and arrogant, jealous, angry, petty. The people who love me forgive me. The people who don't love me continue to avoid me. And I try to get better the next day and the next. But you know, I still mess up. I still let people down. We all do, because we're human. So maybe we can remind ourselves of that when we mess up, and maybe we can remember it when others mess up. Our gospel lesson today is about one of those imperfect humans. And hopefully by taking a closer look at him, we can learn a few things about ourselves. The parable Jesus says is for those who regard others with contempt. That's the Pharisee, who we know is one of a group of very influential Jewish people who controlled the synagogues, who tried to control public opinion, and therefore felt very threatened by Jesus with these newfangled ideas he had about who's in and who's out. The Pharisee did not have the good kind of pride. The good kind of pride is the pride that we showed a couple of weeks ago at the Pride March. That says we're not ashamed, we celebrate ourselves, we're proud of ourselves, we're valued members of this community, and we are loved as God's creation. The good kind of pride is also the kind that says, hey, I did it. I didn't think I could do it, but I did it. I'm proud of myself. I feel good about myself. The Pharisee's pride is the kind that is synonymous with arrogance and self-righteousness. He goes up to the temple and he prays really loudly, God, I thank you that I am not like other people. Rogues, thieves, adulterers, and that tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give 1/10 of my income. He's supposed to be praying to God, but he's really just proclaiming what a fabulous guy he is. He never even mentions God except in the greeting. He thinks that he looks and sounds pretty good up there. A perfect example for all to follow. But his arrogance blinds him to any view other than his own, especially about himself. If he were the least bit self-reflective, surely he would realize how foolish he sounds using a prayer addressed to God to boast about himself. He doesn't seem to have a clue about how he comes across, because arrogance keeps us from looking inward, from seeing our real, true motives. When we deny that we have any faults or any weaknesses, it keeps us from feeling shame too, at least for a while. But the Pharisee does not have a problem pointing out the faults of everybody else, does he? Jesus says earlier in Luke's Gospel, how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when you fail to see the plank in your own eye? Examining our hearts and our minds, admitting our shortcomings is difficult. It's much easier for me to point out your faults than it is to admit mine. I think that's what Parker Palmer is saying in our second lesson when he says, when we are insecure about our own identities, we create settings that deprive other people of their identities. We live in a society that pits us against each other. It says, fake it till you make it. Never let them see you sweat. But when we pretend that we have all the answers, that we know it all, we just look and sound foolish. Arrogance also believes deceives us into believing that if I even acknowledge your accomplishment, it's going to make me look bad by comparison. So instead of building one another up, we tear each other down. And that's a sad situation, isn't it? Isn't there enough light to shine on you and on me at the same time? Does your accomplishment somehow diminish mine? That's how we act much of the time. But then again, we live in a world that rewards me for being better than you. Maybe it was his own security that led the Pharisee to lord it over others that day. Because in the political structure of the time, he too was under occupation by the Roman government. At any time, they could tell him, no, you can't practice your religion. They could kill him. Look what they did to Jesus. So, maybe he created a situation where he could take what little power he had and illuminate it to make himself feel better compared to everybody else. If that's the case, he had not yet learned that our identity does not depend on the role we play or on the power we have over others. He's blind when he goes to the temple, and he's blind when he leaves. And he doesn't seem to know it, but he is missing out on the genuine human relationships that would make his life so much better. His self-righteousness keeps people out. But being together in community, holding one another in love, that's what transforms lives. In comparing the prideful Pharisee to the humble tax collector, Jesus tells us that humility is the better way, the healthier way to live in community with each other. Humility is a word that some people don't like. They think that it means that we don't consider ourselves worthy. But we know Jesus never used it that way. Throughout the Gospels, humility is a leveling of the playing field of life. It means that we are all equally worthy. Jesus' words at the end of the parable, for all who exalt themselves will be humbled, and all who humble themselves will be exalted, echo his mother Mary's words in her psalm when she found out she was pregnant with him. She said, God has brought the powerful down from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. And that's the message that the Pharisees were most afraid of, that no one group or person is any better than any other group or person because of some position they hold in society. C.S. Lewis says, true humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less often. And that's hard because we are the center of our lives, aren't we? It's something we need to always work on. If I find myself saying I, maybe I can start saying you, and you. Celebrating the successes and accomplishments of other people doesn't diminish us. It strengthens the relationship, and it makes us a better community. Thursday night, I asked the folks at Wine and Word to share some of their accomplishments or accomplishments of other members of this church so that we could celebrate each other. Here they are. Hold your applause, please. Carmen bought her first house. PJ made a huge life change. Dan and Sonia had a baby. Glenna and Claire got married. Glenna is having a book of her sermons published. Dana got a new job. Ruth is working a miracle with a shy third grader who has huge reading problems and low self-esteem. Angelica completed her research for an upcoming article on the neuro something or other vascular system. It was a word about that long. Gloria spent 10 years of her life making clothes for premature babies and burial gowns for the babies that didn't survive. Karen is Teacher of the Year at Emory School of Medicine. Meredith got a doctoral fellowship, learned to drive, and bought a car. Jenna had a short story published and is working on a novel. Ashley won Voice of the Year from a national organization, Blog Her, and her latest Clothesline Confessional is on the homepage of Queen Latifah's new talk show. Josh and Kate not only survived spending the summer living with her parents and planning the wedding, they're still there. That's a lot of accomplishments, isn't it? We need to celebrate each other. We spend way too much time afraid that someone's going to outshine us, when we know in our hearts there is enough light and enough love and enough grace to go around. In our first lesson from the prophet Joel, Yahweh says, I give you the early rain and the later rain. The threshing floors are full of grain. The wine vats are overflowing. Everyone will eat in plenty and be satisfied, and I will pour out my flesh on all humans. All of us are children of God. All are worthy, all are equal. Jesus has shown us what true humility is. True humility says, I don't have all the answers. I need you. I have some gifts. You have some gifts. We need each other. We are better together. Let us continue to be better together. Let us continue to build one another up and to celebrate ourselves. Amen. Every morning I wake up with a clean slate, a fresh start. And by the end of the day, sometimes by the end of the morning, I've thought or said or done the wrong thing more than once. I've been prideful and arrogant, jealous, angry, petty. The people who love me forgive me. The people who don't love me continue to avoid me. And I try to be better the next day and the next. But you know, I still mess up. I still let people down. We all do, because we're human. Being an imperfect human is not all that easy, is it? The parable Jesus says is for those who regard others with contempt. That's the Pharisee, who we know is one of a group of very influential Jewish people who controlled the synagogues, who tried to control public opinion, and therefore felt very threatened. So maybe we can remind ourselves of that when we mess up, and maybe we can remember it when others mess up. Our gospel lesson today is about one of those imperfect humans. And hopefully by taking a closer look at him, we can learn a few things about ourselves.